Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today. We're going to give people about a minute to get in. So thank you all for joining us today for what I know is going to be an excellent webinar, New Insights on Biking Among Older Adults. My name is Bill Nesper, and I'm the Executive Director of the League of American Bicyclists. I'm honored to be moderating today's session, and I have to start off first by thanking AARP for their generous support to make this webinar and these new resources that you're about to learn about today possible. The League is thrilled to be the host of this session, where you'll hear from Danielle Aragoni first, who is the Director of the Livable Communities Program at AARP, giving us an overview of their work and resources. Then Ken McLeod, the League's Policy Director, will share findings from the brand new report on biking and walking among older adults. Then over to the League's Education Director, Allison Dewey, who will preview new educational module that we've developed focused on older adults. And then finally, Anthony Taylor, who is the founder of Slow Roll Twin Cities and who was on the executive council of AARP Minnesota, will talk about his work on the ground, reaching and engaging older adults in that community. So we'll have a good amount of time for a question and answer at the end. So a really good discussion. Please use the question box on the side of your screen to get your questions in. Hopefully there's a good amount of time at the end where we can get to all of those. And if not, we will be sending this out and making sure we get to all of your questions at one point. Knowing, this is going to be a really fruitful conversation, but also knowing that a lot of folks here today are within the AAR community and might not know about the League's work, I need to take this opportunity first to tell you a little bit about the League. And so we'll start there. So the League of American Bicyclists, our organization, was founded in 1880 by Americans who saw bicycling as critical to our nation's future. These early advocates organized and petitioned Congress to pave and develop good roads in America, thereby increasing the accessibility and safety for bicycling. Today, 140 years later, the League continues to promote building a bicycle-friendly America for everyone through advocacy, education, and promotion of bicycling and its many benefits, not only for personal well-being, but also the strength and vitality of our communities and country. We know that the bicycle isn't just the best vehicle ever invented. We see bicycling as part of the solution for so many of the crises we face in our country and in our world, like from economic recovery and racial justice to public health and climate change. The League is an organization of 200,000 members and supporters and 1,000 state and local advocacy organizations and recreational bike clubs, all empowering people to transform their lives and communities through bicycling. We are a network of change makers nationwide, making bicycling a real option that is safe, comfortable, and accessible to all. From building confidence, nationwide for bicycling education, here from a slide in Alaska, to providing recognition and a roadmap to bicycle-friendly communities and aspiring bicycle-friendly businesses, like here this ride by the Chamber of Commerce here in Florida, St. Petersburg, Florida, to amplifying the voices of people who bike here in Washington, D.C., speaking up for the investments and policies that help bring bicycling networks and programming to life in your communities. Nationwide, all of us as a league, we are using the power of bicycling to make a better world now, but also for future generations. So I just want to thank you for what you're doing already to make bicycling a safe and easy choice in your communities. Look forward to lots of collaboration in that livable communities work. And I hope that you will walk away from this session with more inspiration, tools for transformation. And if you're not already on board, join the League in creating a bicycle-friendly America for everyone. So for now, I will hand it over to Danielle.
Great. Thank you so much, Bill. It's really my pleasure to be here. I am gonna trust and have confidence that technology will work for us. I'm really pleased to be here. I'm so excited for this meeting, in part because biking is a personal passion of mine. I have the good fortune not only to be director of livable communities at AARP, but also to be a board member for League of American Bicyclists, which gives me great visibility into both of those two worlds. And it occurred to me that we have so much to do together. And so I know that an audience today are folks who maybe heard about this through our AARP Livable newsletter. We appreciate that and welcome you, and glad to have this chance to give you a peek into what's going on in the Bike League and how that can help you, but vice versa as well. Those of you who are Bike League members may not have a sense of what we're doing here in AARP Livable communities, and I think you can stand to benefit from knowing a little bit more. So I'm going to quickly go through a few slides to just sort of share our point of view and why this work matters so much and how it fits into our broader efforts. So of course, you know, AARP as the monolith, huge organization, we do have a significant portion of us that's dedicated to working on communities and making them better for people of all ages. And the reason that we do that is this, that we know that in 2034, actually, census later updated, we will, for the first time ever, be a country comprised of more people over 65 than under 18. In fact, the 65 and older population grew significantly by about a third just in the last 10 years alone. So this demographic shift is underway as we speak. It's already hit many communities. It's already the case in many places across our country. And it begs the question, are our communities ready for that change? Are we ready for that demographic future? And I think we have ample evidence to suggest that perhaps we're not. Our built environment right now is not working particularly well from a housing perspective, where we see rent burdens increasing. We see a mismatch in the type of housing supply that is best suited to who we are as a country demographically. We see that in the parks and public space world, older adults are not availing themselves as public space to the degree that they represent in the population, and that park amenities, park services are not equitably distributed. And particularly that has some very real health effects for older adults in areas where they're particularly park deficient. We know that on the transportation side, which we'll dig into today, most people outlive their ability to drive from 7 to 10 years. And once that mobility ends, it's critical, it's imperative that people have alternatives that work for them, particularly now that transit systems are in crisis. And that we see that bike and ped infrastructure is inadequate. In fact, in 35 states, older adults represent a disproportionate share of those pedestrian fatalities. And all of those things contribute to real health effects in the form of isolation, loneliness, and mental health as well. And we're going to hear more about, I think, some of the data that tells the story about how biking can work better for older adults from Ken in a few minutes. But very quickly, I want to give you a sense of what we're doing about this. So our goal in AARP is to work with local leaders to help them think differently about housing, transportation, and public space solutions, so that we are creating places that work for people of all ages. We do that in 4 primary ways, which I'll blast through very quickly. One of which is we offer a framework for policy change. That is our AARP network of age-friendly states and communities. We now have just about 500 communities in that network. These are localities that are quite small, a couple hundred people, all the way up to the county of LA. And all of those communities are working on what we call our 8 domains of livability, which include transportation. So it's really an opportunity to look at how the community is working, how it's serving the needs of older adults, and if it isn't currently, what can be improved to make it better. So if you're curious if your community is a member of our network, you can check that out at livablemap.aarp.org. We also offer grants to invest in change directly in communities. We all know that sometimes the best and most convincing argument to affect change is to do it temporarily or to do a pilot version of that. We have seen that to be the case with biking, where we've invested in things like the Senior Spokes program in Cleveland, Ohio, which is pictured here, and in temporary bike lane installations, as is the case in Bethel, Maine here. So in lots of places across the country, they have used this Community Challenge Grant Program to make those kind of strategic investments in place. We've awarded about $6 million over the last 4 years. And I will say that our next application window is opening very soon. So please do stay tuned by watching aarp.org/livable or signing up for our newsletter. We offer a number of tools to help local leaders, everything from our livability index to help you evaluate how livable your community is now and what are some of its strengths and shortcomings, to that weekly newsletter that we talked about. This is one of the best ways, I think, perhaps it's how you found out about the webinar today, but it's one of the best ways that we have to communicate with about 100,000 local leaders directly, in which we share new news, new resources, and new information that can help you activate change in your community. So I encourage you to sign up for that. And then one of the things I'm most proud of is this incredible raft of free publications that we offer. to communities to help them affect change. Everything from housing topics such as ADUs to placemaking and pop-up demonstration projects. We offer all of these publications for free and are available upon request. The walk audit tool has been particularly useful, I think, to the bike ped advocacy community, wherein that becomes a really wonderful tool to engage average citizens to go out and evaluate their built environment and see what needs to be improved and enhanced. And I'm really happy to say that as of now, we offer the quick cycling start guide as well, the smart cycling quick guide in collaboration with the Bike League as well. So that is among our publications that we have available upon request. We do periodically do some deep dives into what 50+ cyclists want and need. Last summer, we worked in partnership with a researcher to put in the field a survey, understanding what 50+ cyclists needs. And I think some of the big takeaways here that we'll hear more about from Ken in more detail is that, you know, many of the things that older adults value in cycling are not that much different than what other cyclists do. We all want high quality bike network. We all want fewer potential points of conflict. But we also want places to easily, you know, that are easily accessible, places to shop and work. Older adults value having someone to cycle with and have been motivated to begin cycling again in the era of COVID. So lots of new insights that can help us at an AARP and help our wonderful network of state offices all across the country to better bring older adults into the cycling world. So here's a few links for you to follow up on. The second one there is aarp.org/states. It's important that you walk away from this with an understanding that there is a state office in your state ready to be supportive and helpful to you. So I'll come back at the end to talk a little more, but with that, I think I'll turn it over to Ken.
Thank you for that, Danielle. I'll just get myself going. So the League of American Bicyclists is really happy to work with AARP livable communities on this project. We started our benchmarking report on bicycling and walking in 2018 as part of the CDC's Active People Healthy Nation initiative to get 27 million people more physically active by 2027. And we think it really works well with our focus on building a bicycle-friendly America and AARP's livable communities focus to make great communities for people of all ages, to really focus on that physical activity, getting people more active. With COVID-19, we know now more than ever that physical activity is one of the most important things for your health and something that keeps you healthy no matter what is coming down the road. So one of the things that we found when we did our 2018 benchmarking report is that there's been a statistically significant increase in the percentage of walking trips by seniors. Unfortunately, this wasn't shown amongst biking trips in the National Household Travel Survey, but really the growth in the older adult population is something that we need to pay more attention to, both from a physical activity perspective and a public health perspective. One of the major problems that we have as a transportation and bicycling community is that the most common form of data that we work with is data from the American Community Survey, and it only talks about the journey to work. And we know as people get older, they retire, they might stop working, and they aren't being captured in this data. So we have this once in a decade data set from the National Household Travel Survey. But when we are getting yearly data from states and cities, that data is just commuting, and we're missing all of the trips that older adults do for exercise, for socializing, for recreation, for running errands. So we kind of need more data to have a better understanding, and that's why it was exciting to dig into this data a little bit more. Even with that limitation that we are only able to report on the journey to work every year, we do know that older adults are a very important demographic group for even that data on biking and walking. So about 1 million people age 50 and older bike and walk to work as their primary form of transportation to work. When you're looking at people 45 and older or people 24 and younger, it's about the same percentage of workers in terms of walking to work. So even with the limitation of only having this data on the journey to work, we know that older adults are incredibly important to biking and walking. Looking at that National Household Travel Survey data, we can also see that there's so much more than the journey to work. Particularly for older adults, we see that frequent walking trips, frequent biking trips are more common as people age. There are higher rates of walking for exercise, 3 times or more amongst older adults than younger people. So it really points out that there is a need to focus on this from a public health and physical activity perspective, and that it's incredibly important to engage with older adults if we want more people biking and walking. It was also really exciting to see the National Household Travel Survey data kind of confirm and corroborate the 50+ cycling survey that was sponsored by AARP, showing that there's this increase in prevalence amongst people who do any bike trips of doing 3 or more bike trips a week as they grow older. So it really points to a place where we can continue to improve physical activity and public health, and really meet the needs of these older adults who are bicycling. The unfortunate thing over the last decade for traffic overall is that we've seen an increase in traffic deaths amongst people who are biking and walking. And I found it really stark in the data that the percentage of traffic deaths among older adults increased more than their percentage of the population. So some of the highest age-adjusted rates for being killed while walking and biking are amongst older adults. And it was really stark to see this and see those increases over the last year and how they are borne disproportionately by older adults. Looking at data from NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, we can really see that, almost half of the increase in the number of people killed while bicycling over the last decade are amongst people 55 and older. For both biking and pedestrian fatalities, the largest percentage increases are amongst these older age groups. And even though we've seen slight decreases in 2019, and we're likely to see some slight decreases in 2020, although much worse given that there was a large decrease in vehicle miles traveled. So the rate of traffic fatalities is likely to go up in 2020, but I expect an overall number to go down. It's really unfortunate to see how older adults are bearing the brunt of these increases in traffic fatalities amongst people who bike and walk. And as Danielle said, we do see that throughout the United States, older adults are overrepresented amongst pedestrian fatalities. So they make up a larger portion of pedestrian fatalities than they do of the overall population. In a few states, that's overrepresentation by 20% or more. We didn't see the same thing with people biking of age 65 plus, but we did see that demographic of 55 to 64 be extremely overrepresented in 44 states and DC. And looking at where these fatalities are occurring, we mostly see that these are happening on state-owned roadways. NHTSA only began collecting this data about 5 years ago. So this data still has some issues as states are getting used to reporting it. But we are seeing that overall for all traffic fatalities, and then both for bicyclists and pedestrian fatalities of all ages, including people 55 and older, most of those traffic fatalities are happening on state agency-owned roadways. So state departments of transportation are extremely important to work with to make sure that we're getting safer places to bike and walk. It's also interesting that city and municipal agency-owned roadways are places where pedestrian and bicyclist fatalities are overrepresented compared to other traffic fatalities. So it is also very important to work with your local jurisdictions to make sure that they're investing in safe places to bike and walk. Unfortunately, every state has to do this thing called a strategic highway safety plan. Many of the states address older driver safety, typically through education, providing resources to older drivers who may age out of driving and start using transit or other transportation modes more frequently. But there's not a lot of discussion about older adults biking and walking in those documents. So we only found 7 states that address improving infrastructure for older adults walking in any way, and no state directly addressed older adults biking in terms of improving infrastructure or providing education to them as a distinct demographic group. And looking back at some of that National Household Travel Survey data, we can kind of say some of the things that older adults say make them feel unsafe, make them not want to bike or walk more. And we really see that it's traffic, heavy traffic with too many cars was the #1 reason reported, and was reported more as people got older. And street lighting, a lack of street lighting was another thing that was really important to the safety of older adults and could get people walking more often. We also saw a lack of infrastructure as a major factor. So for bicycling, that's paths and trails. For walking, that's sidewalks, both having sidewalks or having sidewalks that are in bad conditions and may not be suitable for a wheelchair or a mobility device. That really makes it harder for people to bike or walk when you don't have the facilities and they aren't in a good condition. For the CDC's Active People, Healthy Nation initiative, they always talk about making activity-friendly routes to everyday destinations. To me, this data says that we need the routes right now more than the destinations. This data didn't really identify a lack of places to go as a major problem. It identified a lack of that safe infrastructure, those activity-friendly routes. So that kind of points to where we need to move. And while I fully recommend that all of us work with our state and local authorities to get safer streets, it is exciting to see that e-bikes might provide one way for people to feel safer when they're biking, particularly for older adults. There's a 2019 survey out of Portland State University that asked people about their feeling of safety while riding a normal bike versus an e-bike, and found that the feeling of safety increased for all age groups when riding an e-bike, but increased even more for people 55 and older. So e-bikes are one of the things that's been a huge trend in the bike industry, and we're excited to see it continue to grow, and hopefully it gets more people more active, feeling more safe, and being more safe when they're out there biking. So overall, we know that it's important that older adults get physical activity, that they bike and walk. They've unfortunately been disproportionately affected by traffic violence over the last decade. And we know their needs, so we need to give that safer infrastructure, those connected networks with better lighting, and work to reduce large speeding cars and trucks. So we're hopeful that through advocacy, through providing resources like this data, through education, we can improve the safety of older adults and get more people physically active. And that's why it's so exciting to work with AARP in this capacity and on this webinar. And you can find the slides that I presented here and more data on biking and walking by going to data.bikeleague.org. And this is the newest update that we have there. And with that, I'm going to hand it to our education director at the League of American Bicyclists, Allison Dewey.
Thank you, Ken. Let's see, let me get situated here. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Allison Dewey. I'm the Director of Education at the League of American Bicyclists. I am so very pleased to be talking with you all today. Thanks to AARP for such tremendous support in bicycling, and Danielle and the team at AARP's team of Livable Communities program. It's wonderful to be in partnership with them. I am pleased to be speaking with you today about bicycling and specifically about the League of American Bicyclists bicycle education program called Smart Cycling. So Smart Cycling builds skills and confidence to make bicycling more accessible to all and encourages good behavior for bicyclists and motorists. In my few minutes with you, I'm going to briefly cover what is in the Smart Cycling curriculum, how to access the Smart Cycling curriculum, and we'll also talk about the upcoming additions to the curriculum, which is called the Smart Cycling Tips for Older Adults. And this is what we're doing in partnership with AARP. I'll also want to leave you with the information on how to find an instructor in your area, other people to ride with in your area, or a class, a Smart Cycling class in your area. Because when you have people to bike with and learn with, it's way more fun. So what is in the Smart Cycling curriculum? Most of our curriculum is contained in the Smart Cycling manual. We break it down into basics, intermediate, and advanced topics. And you'll find everything in here from how to know what size bike you need, how to perform a safety check on your bike before you ride. Other things like riding at night or going up and down a hill, how to make that easier. Also riding in traffic. So lots of important information to keep you riding safely and to build your confidence to ride. So whether you're just starting out or if you're just returning to bicycling, or if you've been doing it for a while and your movement has changed, your level of flexibility has changed, this is a great course for you. The whole curriculum is available in English and in Spanish. So within the curriculum, there's of course a classroom component where we are talking about bike safety and gaining confidence, building those skills. So you could take this in a classroom setting, or you can also take it online and have access to it at any time. There's also an on-bike component where we go through bike handling drills. So you get familiar with the movement on a bike, controlling your bike, having to go around things on a bike. And this is always done in a safe, protected area, usually a empty parking lot, so that you can feel safe and comfortable trying new things on your bike. We also practice avoidance maneuvers, which come in handy if you have to avoid something abruptly. There's also, typically in the curriculum, there's also a road ride. This isn't an essential part, but we think it's great to practice with other people, get on the roads, practice riding your bike with other road users, and doing it with a group so you can feel safe and confident and learn from your peers. We have thousands of instructors nationwide. All league cycling instructors are empowered to tailor their class to an audience's needs. So it's not uncommon for our instructors to tailor a class around a specific need of a community. So you might see classes of just riding at night, an hour of talking about riding at night and then going out and riding at night, or a class that simply focuses on the basic things and waits to go on the roadway with you and your bike. So there's a lot of different ways that our instructors use our curriculum. Within the Smart Cycling curriculum, we also have a youth skills manual for our instructors to teach our youth how to safely and confidently ride. We also have a group riding safety skills manual. So if you're going out and you're riding in with other people or with hundreds of other people in a charity ride, we want you to know how to do that safely and And communication is key, and there are other things that you need to consider when riding with large groups of people. We recently added a bicycle-friendly driver training to our curriculum, and this is to help motorists understand how to safely share the road with people on bikes. And it's also to encourage a dialogue between bicyclists and motorists, and basically all roadway users, to talk about some of those things that come up on the roadway and how do you respond. This is primarily done in the classroom and is about a 90-minute training. We also, as Danielle pointed out, we have a quick guide, which is, I was so thrilled to see Danielle had hers too. It's a pocket size little guide. It's about 30 pages long that just really encapsulates the curriculum into small chunks of information with great diagrams. It's very colorful, very easy to carry around with you and use when you need it. And through, as Danielle mentioned, through our partnership with AARP, this is available to all AARP members for free. So we sell them on our website at the League, but we definitely hope that you take advantage of AARP's generous offer to deliver these to you for free. It really, truly is a wonderful resource. Now, I mentioned that the Smart Cycling curriculum is online. You can have it at your fingertips on demand at any time that you would like it. And you can find this at the League of American Bicyclists Learning Center, and that's at learn.bikeleague.org. And this is also available to anyone, whether you're a League member, whether you're not a League of American Bicyclists member, whether you're an AARP member or not. This can be available to you at no cost. Let's see, if you are a League member, the system will recognize your email that we have on file for you, so you can just log in. If you are not a League member, you simply have to create an account up in the left-hand corner and validate your email address, and you can get going. Going into the system, you'll see that we break it down into basic, intermediate, and advanced topics. It's recommended that you go through everything, whether you're going to be doing advanced things on your bike or not. It's not rocket science, believe me. But we anticipate that the cycling tips for older adults will build off of this. So we want you to go through the basics, at least to get a feel for what you need to be doing to prepare yourself to ride safely. And each of these sections are filled with videos and quizzes, and no video is longer than 2 minutes, so you can rest assured you can digest as much as you want and then come back and do the rest. So soon, next month, we're adding our module that's called Smart Cycling Tips for Older Adults. This is about 15 to 20 minutes. It will also be available at learn.bikeleague.org. And the topics that we're covering here in this module that are specific for older adults are things like choosing a bike. There's some additional kind of things to consider as you age. The e-bike or electric assist bikes certainly are make going through miles easier for a lot of people. Recumbents, trikes, three-wheeled bicycles. We talk about flexibility and balance considerations. We talk about biking for errands. How do you carry things on your bike? And then an essential part of it is also putting you in the direction to find biking groups and to join, and people in your area to ride with. That's an essential part for any facet of life, is when you have company, it tends to make things more enjoyable. It's the same for bikes. So if you do want to take a class, an in-person class with an instructor that you can that can show you certain things, can talk to you about bicycle safety and building your confidence. You can visit bikeleague.org connect and enter your zip code and city of state or city and state. And a list of instructors will be generated. We have about 3,500 instructors across the nation. It's a very robust network of instructors. And directly from that directory, you can email the instructor and ask for a one-on-one course. You can see if there's other classes happening in your area. That bikeleague.org/connect looks like this. So you'll see a map of the US. You'll see a box where you can enter your city and state or just your zip code. It's a great resource. I encourage you all to check it out. So that's it for me. I think we're taking questions at the end, and I am turning it over now to Anthony.
This is Ken. Hopefully Anthony got the link to share his screen. We're getting some great questions in the chat, so I encourage everyone to keep that up. Really excited to get to them later. We will be sharing these slides afterwards, and we'll be sharing a recording of this webinar as well.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me, Allison?
I can hear
Yes,
you.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks. And I apologize. Actually, I cannot show my slides. So are you?
Would you like me to show them?
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thanks. So everyone, really thank you all for being here with us today. And I will say that I am a long-term fan of the League of American Bicyclists. They've made a significant difference in my life relative to how I bike and why I bike. And one of the most amazing experiences that I've had is actually going to the legislature on legislative day and working with the team there to meet with my local people about why we need more bike infrastructure. And I am also an executive member for our AARP community and got connected through some active living work that's going on in my communities. So I feel like I have benefited from both of those relationships. And I'm going to talk about slow roll, and I really have titled this "What Slow Roll Taught Me About Biking," because as a long-term biker, I'm that guy that has too many bikes and is way too into it, and really. I started out as a sports cyclist and ultimately have really dedicated my time now to really introducing people to biking and how they integrate it into their life. And this is a family photo on the front at an event that we put on in Minneapolis where you got the best seating by biking to that event. And it's in a Minneapolis park, and it was a great day. So can you go to the next slide, please? So one of the things that I get to do, which is really, I get to bike with older people and a lot of diverse people. So this is a Black cycling gathering. And one of the things that really slow roll has taught me is that spandex scares people. And I've also learned that people in the same spandex scares everybody. So the culture of biking is really built around the idea of sports cycling. Although engaging some people, it is not the most inviting, and it does not really represent biking. It doesn't represent what the opportunities are, and sometimes there's a tendency to elevate this in terms of the ultimate opportunity. And so I have really been focused on that in our work and really talking about different kinds of cycling and different kinds of bikers and a different way of doing it. And so we have really, again, gone away from a lot of work that I did at biking, focusing really 100% of my time on slow roll. And one of the things I learned in slow roll is that if we change what people think is going to happen in the experience, they show up, and showing up is half the battle. Can you go to the next slide, please? One of the big things with us in terms of our events around slow roll is that we really focused on changing the intent of why we were getting ready to bike. And once we changed the intent from one being about the bike, two being about the bike ride itself, and changing the intent to a mix of different things. And one was changing that intention to actually connecting people back to their neighborhoods. And it really comes from this really simple idea for many of us is I have found that cars and most of the mobility we moves us through communities or through our neighborhoods, and being on a bike puts you in the neighborhood. And a major goal for many people is actually reconnecting to the geography that they live in, or meeting other people. So slow rolls themselves, one of the things that we do, and it's very interesting for people, is they show up for a ride and they want a copy of the map. And what we've said is that we want you to stay connected to the ride, so we don't share the map. They want to know how far it is. And even with that, the ride is going to be approximately 90 minutes. Or, where are we going? And then instead of going, we say, well, this is what we're going to discover today. And we ask people, did you know that there was a new Black-owned business in your neighborhood? Did you know that the best view of the Twin Cities is actually in a park in this neighborhood? Did you know? And so, again, changing the intention and in the outcome and focusing the ride on the experience that people were going to have, and making the intent of every experience for people to build positive emotional connections to biking. Next slide, please. One of the things that we also looked at is the reasons we ride. We have found that people, broadly speaking, are really excited about things that have high value to them. So biking as representation, biking for social justice, biking again for discovery, biking again, sometimes we relegate it to exercise, and that may be a motivation, but underlying that is a deeper reason for most people. And so again, we have really found it important to give people different reasons for riding, and connectedness is actually a very high value for people. The other one is interconnectedness. People want to be with their family, they want to be with their friends, and so again, slow roll by its very nature winds up being truth in advertising, and it attracts a different kind of person to the ride, and so you wind up with more diversity and again the ability to connect. The other one is interconnectedness, and that what we find is that most neighborhoods in some regards exist in isolation, but on a mile or a mile and a half distance, you cross what have typically been separated kind of communities in people's minds, and you connect people to opportunities that they normally go to. And I think one of the things that I learned in League of American Bicyclists work that's exciting is that trips by bike and by car that are under 3 miles tend to be a time trade-off. So minute per minute is about the same. And slow rolls have been kind of opportunities to prove this for people. And then that discovery opens up opportunities for people all along the ride. Next slide, please. Again, the reasons we ride. One of the things that we've done in terms of themes is giving people themes that tap into some emotional, that tap into something that is relevant, something that is time interesting for people. We have created rides where the geography is designed inside, and for example, this ride was a geographic locations that represent a Black woman's contribution to the well-being of the Twin Cities. And I'm in Minneapolis, St. Paul, by the way. And at each location, we highlighted a piece of history that people didn't know about, or a name of a street that they had seen but didn't know the story behind it. And again, what we do is we wind up connecting people back to the lived experience they're having. It is, this is just one example. And this Dark to Dawn ride became a series. This was the 6th version of it, and we have done one every year until this summer under COVID-19. But each of those has been an experience. it also has evolved into almost performance art. And one of the things that I've done in terms of slow roll has kind of taught me that if we want to connect deeply to people, we should connect to the artist. And I think everyone hears the phrase placemaking and that kind of terminology. And what we have found is our bike rides, that when we collaborate with artists, arts organizations, and community-facing organizations, our collaborations lead to a different kind of team member and community member showing up and a different kind of experience. And one of the pieces of this is really, again, connecting people to the experience they're having rather than making the bike the central theme of why we're together. And once again, putting people and experiences in the center of the ride. And the themes that we have covered really cover the gamut. And in this moment, we have done one on our indigenous connections in the Twin Cities. We have done it on, again, African American contributions. We've done it on food. We've done bikes called Beer, Bikes, Broccoli, where we then feature not just microbreweries, but vegetarian food at each one of those microbreweries. So creating these interesting experiences of people that are memorable. And again, doing it by bike, showing people how their city is built, showing people how to get around, and then creating positive emotional experiences that they connect to the bike. Next slide, please. The other piece of it is, again, I'm showing this slide because I think what it does is it unlocks a city. A group of people on a bike is like a parade. And one of the things that we've said to them all is that they wind up being ambassadors. This picture here is a group of community members that we call Squad. So this is a group of community members we've organized as leaders in a community. And we've made their development as cyclists, as people who bike, as central to why they are connected to Slow Roll. They then are the people that deliver the community rides for us, and they understand that their goal is, one, reconnecting people to community, creating safe passes for people that are on a slow roll. And what happens over a summer for them is they develop their skills, they develop their confidence, and they become their identity becomes connected to this idea of what is the power of a bike. And so this group of approximately 25 people is really the foundation, because so the ultimate goal of all of our work is building community. And the power of the bike to, again, connect people to community, to build community, is really monumental. And the last piece of this is that representation matters. So you can see this is a diverse group, age-wise, gender, and in truth, what we have done, our slow roll squads, so those leading the ride, actually have turned out to be about 70% Black and or women. And again, that is very contrary to those statistics of who actively uses a bike. And again, because representation matters, it changes people's experience of being on a bike. Next slide. That's my last one. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's
so
the last one.
All right, thanks. And then I think that the last thing I was going to say is that the things I've learned relative to how slow roll, one, is really pulled really our older community to be a part of it. And things that I've learned about teaching is that we are saying to our community members that biking is a skill. It is not based in the old athleticism that we kind of think about, that it's a skill that you learn, that you master, and you get better at it over time. The other thing that we have kind of learned in terms of working with those community members is, again, that safety is a big part of it. And what we have found is that the feeling of lacking confidence and not being safe is focused very heavily on every time you start the bike and every time you start pedaling. So we actually began our educational experiences for adults now on the idea of specific techniques for starting and stopping, and that's the foundation, and then we expand from there. And again, by treating it as a skill, people find that they wind up feeling successful. And the last piece is we ground it in work that we see around that we often apply to youth but not often to adults, which is focusing on social emotional learning outcomes, which really are grounded in the idea that a person can look back over their experiences and see their own growth and their own attainment through an experience. And those become the foundation for our work with adults. And adults need it more because they're infinitely more fragile, because they have a lifetime of experience proving that they can break, they can fall, and they might not be successful. So thank you.
Thank you, Anthony, and thanks
thank
to
you.
all the presenters. So we have about 9 minutes left for some questions. We have lots of great questions. Anthony, you were just talking, and when one of them came up, it was really simple, and I just want you to take this first one. What is slow roll, and how do we get one?
Well, Slow Roll is really a community-based ride. It's a project that initiated in Detroit, again, around this idea of connecting people to the community, to the positive aspects of the community. So we collaborated with them and began to grow these slow rolls, but we've developed a very simple set of criteria. For example, slow rolls happen every week at the same time. They may have a different start, but slow rolls have a focused speed of under 10 miles an hour. They have a focused time of about 90 minutes, which means that we're covering, under 8 miles an hour, which means that we're covering approximately 10 miles in that geography. We design the stops. They begin with a DJ or music and a bike fix-up tune-up session, and they end with a community meal where we have basically scavenged local urban gardens, a local chef or food place, and again, focusing on the experience. And so we end with music and food. And again, the ultimate goal is connecting people to community and building community with the ride itself.
That's awesome. So lots of great questions. I'll just say that we'll get to these, and we're going to share. A couple of people asked about slides, like, can we get these resources? Can we see these slides? We will share this all out, and we'll get to these questions as well. One that really came up was, where do I get this little quick guide, and where do I find these other livability resources? And so I just want to make sure that folks have. We're going to show a slide at the end, but we'll share that in the notes too. The AARP livability place. Is that right, Danielle? Is that where we should send people?
Yep, aarp.org/livable is where you can find all that.
Awesome. So lots of questions about that. And Allison, what if there isn't an LCI near me? Like, how do I get involved? How do I become an LCI?
Oh, that's a great question. So while our League Cycling Instructor Network is very robust, our country is big, so there may not be an instructor directly in your area. You can always go online, but as we always emphasize, being on a bike is much better than being in the classroom or at your computer. So along that list in our Connect Locally map, there are also groups, bike shops, bike advocacy organizations, bike clubs. Those groups will also be able to probably point you in some direction of joining people to ride. Definitely before becoming an instructor, we'd want you to take the curriculum, and then we have an abundance of resources on our website on how you actually become an instructor. It's a 3-day seminar. It's I wouldn't say rigorous, but it is. It's a lot of a long weekend, but a lot of fun because you're with a group of people and with some really bikey people. So those resources are on our website. There's a lot to just see, but we do have a list of seminars also on our website as well under the Smart Cycling tab.
So folks want to do that. And another one was kind of a follow-up, was like, yes, the answer is you can have a one-on-one connection with an LCI. So we list all of our active LCIs on that place that Allison just said.
Yeah, and I just want to add that LCIs, we empower them to set their own rates. So what one LCI might be charging for a class might be different from another LCI. So just, and people are open to, you know, the LCS, I'm sure, are open to feedback, and hearing what you think is a good going rate for an instructor.
Thanks, Allison. Ken, this one for you. Do you have anything to say about the disproportionate traffic violence being seen, like, you know, negative outcomes of people dying and also serious injury of seniors in the data? Like, why is that? Why is that the way that it is?
I mean, I think what we've seen is that many arterial roadways in particular are not built with safe places for people to bike and walk. They aren't built with adequate street lighting. They aren't built with good ADA accessible ramps and other facilities. And so those places are particularly dangerous for people of all ages, but older people are more vulnerable. What may be a small injury to a person in their 20s may be a larger injury to somebody who is older. And we've also seen an increase in large trucks and SUVs over the last decade or 2 decades. So really we need both that local action through the state DOTs and local roadway agencies to build better roads. And we need to organize at the federal level, which does vehicle regulation, to try to get safer vehicles, vehicles that can automatically brake for people biking and walking, which is something that exists, but something that the US currently doesn't test for.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks. Anthony, real quick, any specific tips you would have for clubs or community groups that are trying to appeal to get older people into recreational cycling? Are there ways that we can reach older people that already might identify as bicyclists, you know, to be part of community rides?
You know, I would definitely, in this instance, I would have you check with your local AARP. I think people are really not really clear that AARP is a significant promoter of active living in communities, and particularly for aging populations. And active living is a foundational way to live better. So I think check with that. I think the other thing, if you run a club, this is not self-promotion. I went through LCI training years ago. It was one of the best things I did, because it does teach you how to be on a bike in community. And I think that one of the foundational things, even to Ken's response, is really important, is when you begin to get on a bike, you have to remove your car brain navigation system. You have to think differently about the community you live in, because if you look in Google Maps for bikes is a functional and very good tool, because the idea is not what's the best way to get there, what's the best way to get there by bike. And so that will, again, change the way that you experience biking. And in many communities, there are better ways. And if you are looking at ways to attract people, I really do mean this, is that understand that people are self-preserving, as in they're not going to sign up for something that's going to hurt them or they're going to be at risk, right? So look as unrisky as possible, right? Tell you know what I mean? Ask your people who have the really sweet bike, leave it at home, right? Bring the bikes that look like the bikes that the guy who is afraid he's not going to use his bike is going to use, and really make the experience inviting. Have a greeter. You know what I mean? I mean, like there's a very practical way that we can invite, greet, meet, and really meet people where they are. And again, focus on a positive emotional experience as the outcome of those first interactions, not distance, not any, and they make that connection, they'll come back for a second ride. And biking is amazing, that if you can do it twice a week for any distance, you get better, you feel stronger, you're happier. So I think, those are the things I see. That's what we need to do.
It's really helpful. I know that we have this last slide of like the 10 things to do, and I just wanted to, I think Ken's got control of that. But Danielle, your work within livable communities, just want to see, are there any sort of words of inspiration as we move from this, thinking about bicycling and walking as part of the larger livability context, and what can some of these things that people can do as we move on?
Yeah, I would say to challenge your notions of what older adults are interested in and what they're capable of. I mean, I think oftentimes there's a tendency to sort of dismiss older adults as not interested. Oh, they don't bike. If they wanted to bike, they already know how. They must have learned as a kid. Like, don't assume that, create those opportunities. I think the way Anthony described it is perfect, is, make an invitation to learn something new, make it fun, make it safe, make it not embarrassing. All of those sort of factors and dynamics come into play. Also things like balance and stamina. I mean, those are issues that older adults are reckoning with, perhaps that younger adults are not. So just be mindful of those. We do have a few ideas in terms of what you can do next. First of all, there's a fantastic bike summit coming up that League of American Bicyclists is putting on. We're sponsors of that, as are many others. So that's one way to dig deep on this stuff. The report that Ken just talked us through is now, as he mentioned, available. So please download that and, think about how that applies to your own community, how you might use that to influence the decisions of local leaders to think differently about how older adults fit in their community in terms of as bicyclists. Allison described the new bike league training that's coming online. We now know about LCIs you can go out and recruit, but really think about ways to meet older adults where they're at in terms of their cycling journey. I already mentioned a couple times a plug for a newsletter. That's the best way to keep in touch with us and what's new from our world, and that is a way to be made aware of new publications such as the Smart Cycling Quick Guide, which we're really excited to help promote with Bike League. I mentioned the Community Challenge Grant Program. I think I erroneously said it opens February 10th. It opens February 17th. More information there, aarp.org/livable or /community challenge. And then we also heard a couple other places to go and find out more about what's happening in your area, whether it's bikeleague.org/connect or whether it's livablemap.aarp.org to find out what we in the livable communities world are doing through AARP in your community. So there's no shortage of things to do. We hope that this inspires you to spend a little bit more time thinking about how to get older adults on cyclists and or make your cycling activities more inclusive of older adults.
Thanks so much to everyone for participating, again, for our presenters and AARP for making this possible. Yeah, we'll be looking at all these questions and getting you some answers and sharing this out. Thanks so much for participating.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bike League.